in my clinical practice for a long time, I had a kind of like a kitchen space. Like I saw patients at like a kitchen table and I'd have all my herbs behind me. And within the visit, I would like pull herbs off the shelf and be like, okay, see this, smell it, taste it. This is called ashwagandha. How does it feel? This feels good. Okay, I was thinking this much. And we would blend a formula together. Like I would get them involved actually in the process of putting their medicines together. And those would be the patients that would do the refills more often, that would want to come back.
Welcome to Personalized by Vitamin Lab, the show where we dive deep into the world of personalization in healthcare. I'm your host, Dr. David Dizer. Please remember that the following discussion is for educational purposes only, and is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease. Speak with your healthcare practitioner first before integrating anything that you learned today. Join us as we explore the remarkable stories, breakthroughs, and possibilities that come with the pursuit of personalized healthcare. Welcome back to Personalized by Vitamin Lab. I'm your host, Dr. David Dizer, and on today's show, I'm speaking with Dr. Marisa Marciano, a licensed naturopathic doctor and registered herbalist with deep expertise in both the education and clinical application of therapeutic herbal medicine. After earning her bachelor's degree in kinesiology from the University of Western Ontario, Dr. Marciano completed her medical training at the Canadian College of Naturopathic Medicine, Boucher campus. Since 2011, she's been immersed in the study, practice, and teaching of herbal medicine, sharing her knowledge with everyone from healthcare practitioners to the general public. In addition to her clinical work, Dr. Marciano is the founder of Herbal Energetics, a professional tincture manufacturing and compounding company on the Sunshine Coast of British Columbia. There, she personally oversees the production of over 300 different herbal tinctures, each crafted to unite traditional herbal wisdom with modern scientific insight. In our conversation, we explore the modern role of herbal medicine, how to integrate botanicals safely and effectively alongside conventional care, and why the relationship between people and plants remains one of the most powerful tools for healing. It's an insightful and grounded discussion about the art and science of herbal medicine. Let's get started. Enjoy our episode with Dr. Marisa Marciano. Welcome back to Personalized. I'm your host, Dr. David Dizer. I'm here with Dr. Marisa Marciano. Good to see you. How are you today?
It's good to be here, David. I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm super excited to chat with you. We've had actual requests to have you on the program, so...
I didn't know that. I'm tickled.
First person to actually be requested to come on, so this is a special place to be.
That's so nice. That's really nice.
And the request comes because you have this special expertise, which is more than what we get in typical naturopathic education, although we get a great expertise in herbal medicine in naturopathic education. I know that you have taught many of the courses and have done some curriculum development for these courses, but you've got extra sauce when it comes to herbal medicine. And so I'd love to ask you some questions about the applications of herbal medicine in our current world of holistic care, if that's okay with you.
Sure. No, happy to.
Well, first, let's start with the extra expertise that you have. Tell me about your journey to become a master herbalist. When was that, before naturopathic college or after?
No, I came in like very green to herbal medicine, and when I came into naturopathic school, my interest grew throughout the program. So it wasn't really until I just kind of like latched on to Chantal Cabrera, our herbal medicine teacher at the time, who is a medical herbalist from the UK, and you would have had her as well as an instructor a little bit, perhaps, or no?
The whole time, and she worked in the office next to me. So she worked out of our clinic.
Oh, gosh. Okay, so you know her very well, and you know how incredible and detailed, and her expectations for what you know are high, and I appreciated that so much. So yeah, just latched onto her. I started TAing herbal medicine as soon as she'd let me, marking quizzes, whatever, just like trying to get as much information from her as I could and to build my own knowledge. And then, started teaching pretty quickly after graduation. Loved it. Loved just being like immersed in the materials, and continued to like prepare for my, registered herbalist designation, which comes through the American Herbalist Guild in the United States. It's kind of the main body that gives that designation. And then, lucky enough, when Chantal decided to leave the college, she'd been there for a very long time, she tapped me to step in as chair. So I ended up kind of helping with building the curriculum for the program. Loved that. And then, yeah, I got my registered herbalist designation probably in 2018 or so. And then since then, I've just been like, yeah, getting my hands into like anything I could. I'm now like a board member for the BC Herbalist Association and have my registered herbalist designation with them. So there's a few different places that you can, like herbal worlds that I've tried to sort of integrate myself into. And every time I go, they're always like, you're a naturopath. Like, why are you here? And I'm just like, I'm shocked I'm the only one here, that there's like not more NDs who are interested in kind of being a part of the herbal world a little bit more. It's cool to see it start to happen a little bit now, but that's sort of a bit of my journey.
And what was it? Was it the science around how effective herbs can be, or was it your experiences with them in clinic? What really inspired you?
Yeah, good question. I think it made just so much sense. And I feel like there's a lot of students that feel this when they're learning it. It's like, if you care, if you understand how important what goes into the body is, that how long these have been used as the primary form of medicine by humankind, it's like, wow, there's all this knowledge that we've just forgotten. And it just, I don't know, for me, it felt very like intuitive that this made sense as a really powerful form of healthcare. And then starting to actually work with the plants, being kind of more hands-on with them in a way that I never had before, being up in the clinic dispensary and blending teas and blending tinctures and tasting them and having like, this more kind of tactile relationship with them grow. That's where it kind of started, I think, the love for me. And then the science was cool. Like, and then from there, you're like, oh, okay, cool. So raspberry's been used forever for this. And then, oh, here's this, clinical trial that showed it actually can help speed up late delivery and, reduce preterm labor and all these things. It's like, that would just be the constant inspiration to keep going, to be like, oh, we have so much to uncover, even though we already have all this incredible knowledge to remember. It's like always growing, and I loved that about it.
Absolutely. I love that you said remember. I think that people will really resonate with that. And what's the evolution been like now? Now, are you doing this kind of triple career where you're seeing patients and teaching and running your company?
Yeah, this past year was a big transition. So I just did my clinical practice and teaching. It's kind of those two things were my main thing for probably 8 years or so. And then I realized, I always wanted to keep my foot into clinical practice, but I wanted to reach more healthcare practitioners. I wanted to like kind of teach at a higher level, I guess, or start, students. I love catching them at that point where they're just learning and getting really inspired. But I was like, oh, I want to actually teach at a higher level. So I ended up moving and doing some consulting for some companies in the States. And that kind of upped my game, to be honest. I loved, there's, one company in the States that I worked for that I did a lot of education, a lot of research, a lot of content development for, and a lot of in-person teaching for all sorts of healthcare practitioners in the United States. And that was great for me now for that period of time. Then I had babies and that shook things up, and I realized travel was going to just be too hard and stuff. So this past year anyway, we made this big transition. We left our clinic in Vancouver. I left the college. I left the consulting, and then we moved to the Sunshine Coast, BC. So kind of out of the mainland busyness. I'm now basically full-time running my company, which is herbal energetics, tincture, compounding, and manufacturing for healthcare practitioners. So I'm doing that primarily. However, I did just teach a lecture at Boucher last week, or the CCNM nice. Boucher campus. They asked me to come back and teach a couple botmed courses for year 1 botmed and year 4 botmed courses. So that was great. It actually felt really good to be back in that. And then I just maintain my clinical practice mostly virtually. Now I don't have a physical space at the moment, but I think in the next few years we'll look at having that again out here. But yeah, it's been really nice. I think it's kind of like, sounds a bit cliche, but it has been very like feeding my soul a little bit to be working with the plants again in this way, where I'm not maybe as like out there in the world talking about them all the time or sitting on my computer clickety clacking. It's like, oh, I'm back to just like making medicine and like, that's being in the workshop is like, very much my happy place right now. So that's been a cool part of the journey currently.
Very cool. Very cool. Especially in the Sunshine Coast, especially up there in nature, doing your thing. Tell me about the hole in the market that your company is filling. Because I can see it from my perspective. I mean, a little bit about my background and where I am kind of in the city where we both were working. But what have you noticed in terms of, well, first of all, explain a little bit about what your company does, and then tell us
Sure.
about the hole in the market that it's filling.
Yeah, well, herbal tinctures, so I just do tincture compounding currently. I think what we do is we manufacture, we have about 200, 225, kind of the number changes, single tinctures. So am making all the tinctures myself in-house, like macerating, pressing, all of it. I have some help, but primarily that's what we do. And then I sell wholesale to practitioners these tinctures. So it's nothing direct to consumer. I'm just supporting other practitioners, licensed practitioners, to have access to herbal medicine in their dispensary and to be able to do custom compounding for their patients. I can also custom compound, and I do drop shipping for lots of people too. So if you, as a practitioner, wanted your patient to have this particular blend, I'll put that together for them and pop it in the mail, and it shows up at their door. So just trying to make it easy. And then I also have my own, a whole set of compounded formulas that people can use as well, that are just some tried and trues, and some interesting ones actually that I inherited when I took over this company from the herbalist who ran it for over 20 years. She blended a lot of Eastern, Western herbal philosophy. So some very cool formulas, like things that I didn't even learn in school. I'm kind of learning now again about how to blend Western herbs with TCM herbs and getting some awesome results. It's been fun for me to use in my practice too, these formulas. I'm like, oh, this is new for me too. So that's been great. Yeah. And there's a few companies that do what I do in Canada, but I don't know. I think what we do is kind of unique in that I'm not aiming to make it really huge. It's just something that I'm doing because I love to do it, and I love to support other NDs especially, but acupuncturists and other herbalists, and just, it's hard to stock a whole herbal dispensary. Yeah, so I'm just here to be like, I can send you what you need when you need it. And you don't have to worry about spending 10 grand to like have what you need on the shelf, even though I wish we all could. But it's, when you're a student, you're in school and you have access to all of these herbs and it's amazing. And then you go out and you're like, oh, well, like, and then, you get kind of, yeah, I'd like to help kind of bridge that gap, make it a little easier.
For sure. And I was working in a place where we had custom compounds.
Yeah, which is very lucky.
But since the pandemic, we haven't had that. And it's been very challenging. And we had a lot of people who were, left without their formula, left without someone with the expertise to make it, without being able to find it at a decent price, a price that is still doable for them. And so I see the potential for clinics like mine to support the patients like we see, using herbs and using custom tinctures. There's so much value in them. But even in standard tincture protocols, and I'm a huge fan of Vitamin Lab, who is the sponsor of the show, and personalized care in general. And this is what I'm all about: personalizing both vitamins, tinctures, based on what someone's actually going through and what their main health challenges are. Mm-hmm. But at first, it's really difficult. It's tough to get started. And when I first started as a naturopath using herbs clinically, I just relied on pre-made formulas.
Sure.
And I'm wondering about, if you were to start over, knowing what you know now, if you could help me with those first couple of years of my career, what would be the formulas that you would stock that are not personalized? They're pre-made formulas that include herbs. What do you think a new grad should have in their dispensary?
Oh, well, yeah, it's like, it depends on what your practice looks like.
Let's pretend we're all in primary care.
We're all in primary care. Yeah. So for me, I think about all of the stuff on my shelf that like expired within like a few years of going into practice. And I'm just like, don't do those. A lot of like maybe too specific kind of, just the real big general, like I think often a lot of students also, when they come out, they're feeling a little scared. They don't want to, like, they're worried about herb drug interactions. They're worried about adverse effects of like, things that they learned for NPLEX that are like so scary. And then you're out in the world and you're like, well, this can be done safely if it's monitored. And anyway, to just kind of act a little bit more broadly and generally and think about these tried and true, long tested herbs for stress management, for supporting digestive function, like just fundamental naturopathic things, picking your 5 favorite GI herbs, your 5 favorite adrenal adaptogen herbs, like even just that, like there's an amazing amount you can do with 10 singles that are aimed at supporting the digestive system and the HPA axis. I feel like almost like name any condition and like who couldn't benefit from some of those things. I think, yeah, that the core of my practice has been a lot of just nervous system support for people, kind of no matter the condition. And then, we might do targeted nutraceuticals for other things or other treatments for. But when it comes to herbs, it's like I think of them as that. Of course, they can act like the whole tonics and effectors idea. So it's like there's herbs that act as tonics and there's herbs that act as effectors. And yeah, the effectors are awesome. We can use them acutely in situations to help control symptoms and that. But mostly for a new grad, I would say tonics is like the main thing I would be focusing on. So nourishing to whatever major body system that person needs. And I think, yeah, digestion and adrenals are probably the big two. So I don't know. I could bang out herbs there, but those are like, that would be where I would suggest students start.
Vitamin Lab revolutionizes personalized supplements, empowering health practitioners to create tailored supplement formulations that address each patient's unique needs. Bring personalized health to your practice and choose from over 200 professional-grade ingredients to create vitamin formulas that improve patient adherence and result in tangible outcomes. All ingredients are sourced from the world's most trusted suppliers, and Vitamin Lab provides hands-on support to help you formulate and launch personalization to your patients. Say hello to a new era of personalized supplement solutions. Go to getvitaminlab.com/personalized to save $100 off your first formula.
Well, I think it's really valuable to hear that because, I was 5 years in my practice when I had to build my first dispensary, and I was purchasing things that were cholesterol control,
right,
blood pressure control,
yes,
testosterone boosting. I was doing this type of approach, and I lost money on all of these things. Because I feel like I should have done what you suggested, and I think it'll be really helpful for new grads to hear that, because thinking about stress and sleep and digestion and mood is probably a better place to start because it'll have more broad applicability. But what would be the herbs? Let's say we broke it down into two groups, stress and mood, and then digestion, wellness. What would be some tonics that you would choose for these two groups?
So, of course, there's the big guns. I like to think about, when I think about adaptogens, kind of the more stimulating, energizing, and then the more calming, relaxing. You'll need those at different times for different people. So having a few of each of those. So the more calming ones are going to be your ashwagandha, your holy basil, potentially schizandra in there. And then your more stimulating, you've got your ginsengs, eleuthero, rhodiola. Those would be some key ones. And then the nervine tonics. So I know, I really try to always pair nervine tonics with adaptogens. Oats is like the big guns for me. Milky oat seed. Yeah, so powerful, so safe, so effective. Skullcap, some St. John's wort, perhaps. Those are some big ones for me. And then for digestion, it's like all those lovely aromatics, but bitters, obviously. I mean, a good bitter blend, like that's one that you don't need to custom compound. You can get a classic bitters formula on your shelf that's going to have lots of use for you, most likely. And then all of our carminatives, so fennel, anise, I use a lot of chamomile. Those would be those big ones there. And then, I do go through a lot of antimicrobials as well. So maybe that's the other category I haven't included, but I do think are really valuable for our herbal dispensaries is our thyme, our myrrh, our berberine containing herbs. Like when you need some big guns to address infection in various kinds. Yeah, those would be what would come to mind first. Echinacea.
I love it. I'm literally taking notes even though I'm a decade in. Is that okay?
That's how it goes. That's just how it goes.
Oh gosh. So we have this kind of framework for this holistic approach. But some people might be listening and saying, well, don't I just want to do standardized extracts? Don't I want to buy these really expensive kind of supplements off the shelf that people are promoting as the best next thing in herbal medicine? Why should we not do those? Why should we choose to do whole herb instead?
Yeah, it makes me feel a bit old when I'm like, I think back now, it's like, oh, I've been around long enough to see these like trends come and go now, right? Or these like crazy fads, or people just get super into like the new, most bioavailable form of whatever. And like, no hate, really. Like, it's like, if it works, like, great. But, I could go into the whole philosophy around just like whole plant medicine that's so fundamental to the roots of herbal medicine, where we just, yeah, we care about constituents, totally. They're fascinating. I love knowing mechanism of action when we can. But, I just did this kind of deep dive into ashwagandha, and everyone's so like hyped up about the withanolides. There's hundreds of different withanolides in ashwagandha, and different researchers are looking for which one they can like is the most important, and then so they can standardize it. And I do think it's great to have we have clinical trials that support a certain amount of withanolides present and taken a couple times, certain number of times a day, and that's going to give you the results you want. And that feels really good as a clinician to have that kind of backup before you give somebody something. And some patients really care about that, and others don't really so much. But yeah, I guess I would say that there is a little bit of, there's, at least some animal studies showing that ashwagandha extract, completely devoid of withanolides, still has adaptogenic effects. And that's not uncommon in herbal medicine, that we see things where it's like turmeric without curcumin, still anti-inflammatory. Like, there are hundreds of compounds in these herbs that have therapeutic activity, and we get kind of really hung up on there being one, which treats herbs like we do drugs in a way. It's just like, well, let's find the compound that's like, well, that's how pharmaceuticals began. It's like, let's figure out what in this plant that we've been using for hundreds of years is going to have a therapeutic effect, isolate it and give it in a higher quantity. That's like exactly the same thing that we're trying to do with standardized access to a certain degree. And so just being conscious of that, as opposed to just accepting it as being the best way. When we do that with drugs, there's consequences too that we don't think about. We're missing out. We're losing out on other parts of the plant, and we are, potentially making something more effective. Sure. But yeah, it's just not the same thing. It's not the same thing as how the herb would have been taken traditionally. And so
it's a completely different approach to practice, isn't it? And sometimes what I have seen is the balance of effect is skewed from what you would expect from the plant. Consider a 600 milligram ashwagandha standardized extract supplement causing someone to actually feel pretty tired and depressed, to feel pretty low. Maybe some of that adaptogenic effect is lost because it was from the other constituents.
Sure. Yeah, it's very possible. And I've just kind of heard from enough of our elders, even though they might not like me to call them that, but people that have been using herbs for way longer than we have, who are just like, whole turmeric works better than the standardized extracts. That they're whatever it may be, like they're really, it helps to hear that too from some of these people that have more experience. It's just, we can't. Eric Yarnell is a person who's really big into, he can talk a lot about this, and I really respect him and where he kind of lands.
Me as well. Yeah, thanks for mentioning his name. It's Eric Yarnell, if anyone's interested and hasn't heard him speak before. We were on this kind of track of talking about, just getting going in your practice. And I know a lot of new grads will know who you are because of your textbook and because of your influence in our industry. And they're probably wondering, aside from your really cool textbook, where else should they look for information about becoming, kind of expert level, higher level in herbal medicine? I know that you had a very clear path. Do you suggest that they look at your path, or do you suggest other educational opportunities in herbalism?
Yeah, good question. Thank you for the kind words too. But the book was a long journey, but my attempt with that was to take like as many of the resources that I trusted and pull out pieces that I thought were the most valuable, and then kind of organize it in a way that was a little more simplistic, because there are some incredible books out there, but if you're not really into herbs, it might just be too much. But I think the kind of the person we all look up to, at least I should say, like I do in my world, is Kerry Bone. So out of Australia, he's written some really, even I think in the past 2 years, his book Functional Herbal Therapy, I'm not sure if you've seen that one, David, is really cool. Like, he's always kind of leading the way he was saying things about echinacea 20 years ago that we're now like accepting as true, or, understanding things about how herbs act as NRF2 activators. He was talking about that like way before everyone else did. When COVID was around, he was the one kind of helping debunk myths about herbs being responsible for cytokine storms. Like, he's someone I really look to in his ability to break down the truth that we can get lost in the hype. So I really respect him. And
it's Carrie Bone, right?
It's Carrie Bone. Yeah, Dr. Carrie Bone. So he was the founder of MediHerb. He's sold that business, but he is still affiliated with them. He's amazing. And then I always looked up to Aviva Ram, Dr. Aviva Ram, who's a midwife and a medical doctor and a herbalist. So all of that really resonated with me, where it's just really into understanding how somebody who comes from a kind of natural health background and then went into the, she believes she went to like Yale Medical School and was trained there, and bridging those worlds. So the way she talks about herbs, if I ever have like any sort of questions about women's health, children, pediatrics, safety, because she's, she has that little bit of like a conservative side, but also she's like in her core a hippie. So that's sort of just something I resonate with. And then, I find a lot of newbies, if you want to just get like pulled in and kind of fascinated by herbs, looking to people like Matthew Wood and Stephen Harabuner and these herbalists that are using herbs so differently than like Carrie Bone is, where the energetics really are the main thing that we're exploring. And, obviously that we could, touch on plant psychedelics and this whole like crazy realm that herbs can take us into in healing, that I think for some people, that's what gets them in to like really fascinated and like learning more, where it's like, oh yeah, there's so much these medicines that is so fascinating that we don't fully understand yet. And then that can kind of keep the wheels wanting to turn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. That's a really comprehensive list. Thank you. And some of those people I've heard of it before and others I haven't. So I appreciate the exposure.
Yeah. And, I really look up to other naturopaths specifically who have really focused on herbs. So Eric Yarnell, for sure, Dr. Yarnell, and Dr. Mary Bove is another one who recently passed away. But amazing resources. And Jill Stansbury. Stansbury in the States is another one that I really love. These are NDs, that have made kind of herbs the core of their practice.
And lots of information about them online, and they have books and they give lectures and things.
100%. Yeah, I just want to give a shout out. I just want to say there's a great website that I use, and I think it's just botanicalmedicine.org, and I could be getting it wrong, but that's it's just like so basic, the name, but it's just a tons of resources, like every herbal conference by every expert the past like 20 years that you could find recordings there. And I go there a lot for specific topics that I'm interested in, or speakers. You can search by speaker too. So there's like, anyway, a great resource that I use quite often if you just want to learn directly from other people using herbs.
A lot of people get into it because of personal use, and one of the main reasons people get into naturopathic medicine is having, a practitioner really benefit their family or themselves. And sometimes it's experience with herbs and other therapies. And for me, it was taking a certain combination of vitamins and herbs and being able to stay up for 48 hours and study. And,
oh, wow.
Yeah, just like shocking. This is so incredibly effective for the thing I really wanted it to do. And it's just wild. Can you speak to that personal, kind of experience? I know a lot of naturopathic students in particular will have benefit from adaptogens and will take ginseng throughout school. What do you think about that kind of exploration?
Hugely important. I think, and I really encourage students to try to have a personal experience with really every herb you bring into your dispensary. It's, that's the way that you learn. When I was a student, I went to Finlandia and I asked really nicely if I could get like a tiny, like teaspoon-sized amount of like 25 different herbs. And they did that for me kindly, or I think at the time you could even dispense them themselves. But, so that I could make a cup of tea with each one that I was learning the monograph of and be like, oh, that tastes nasty, or oh, I liked that, or what was going on, that made my stomach hurt. Like, even negative experiences can be really important too, right? As opposed to just positive ones. There's really something to be said for that personal experience, and it can look a lot of different ways. We did the herbal retreat at Innisfree Farm. I'm not sure if that's something you did, but like we used to always take the first and second year herb students out to Chantal Cabrera's farm on Vancouver Island, and we'd camp for 3 days, and we would just walk around her gardens and do forest bathing. And 100% the students that like attended that retreat were the ones who did best in the class, and the ones who continued to use herbs in their practice that I'm aware of, the doctors that use them now. It's like you had that immersion, that like connection to just being with the plants and nature, and that can be so valuable. Yeah, and you need a teacher in those situations too. I think like having someone to guide you is really important.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, I'm in exercise physiology mostly, and my world is so much colder. I've got a teacher, but he's on Zoom, and I'm not in the forest bathing and being connected with the exercise physiology devices, but it's so valuable to do something like that, and the patients benefit. Like, when you have this kind of connection with the medicine, I feel like we're losing a lot of it as so many of us turn to GLP-1s and
Sure.
and turn to this pharmaceutical approaches that are very effective, but not as warm, and you're kind of losing that approach. Can you talk to me a little bit about your approach in your clinical practice when you were practicing more? What was it like? Was these traditional naturopathic values, principles, or how did you practice?
Yeah, I'm pretty, I feel like I was pretty old school and pretty inspired by like the Brave and Rains of our time.
Okay. There we go. We're name dropping now. Love like, Brave. Absolutely.
Yeah, I never really, to each their own, like no judgment, but like I never went down the path of like, I never wanted to do chelation or IVs or aesthetics, or I didn't want to poke people with things really. I just kind of wanted to talk and figure out how I could help the person, like really just through connection and through teaching them to connect to nature. That's, I think, just lost. We talk about like nature deficit disorder, but it's real, especially for a lot of patients living in cities. That was a lot of my patients. I was like right downtown for a long time, and it was just, people functioning at a super high level, just plugged in 24 hours a day, addicted to their phones, working super hard, training for marathons, but also a lawyer, but also, and it's just like we gotta find something to ground you throughout all of this. And I just think I found like herbs were the best way to do that. I would, in my clinical practice for a long time, I had a kind of like a kitchen space. Like I saw patients at like a kitchen table, and I'd have all my herbs behind me, and we would like within the visit, I would like pull herbs off the shelf and be like, okay, see this, smell it, taste it. This is called ashwagandha. How does it feel? Let's put this feels good. Okay, I was thinking this much, and we would blend a formula together. Like I would get them involved actually in the process of putting their medicines together. Those would be the patients that would do the refills more often, that would feel like would want to come back, that would want to be connected. I'd sometimes teach patients to make their own tinctures. Like you can do, if we're going through 500 mils every 4 to 6 weeks, like here's how you make this. Make it for yourself, or an elderberry syrup for your kids, or whatever. And those types of things I loved. And so, these are obviously people who are not super sick, right? Like these are people that are just kind of that low grade chronic underlying fatigue feeling, maybe they're not sleeping well. Or for the majority of cases though, I found this to be, or my practice style worked great. Like I got good results and people got better. And if it was trickier, it was more complex, then we would do other stuff, or I would refer out. But that was how I needed to enjoy clinical practice myself, because I also found it very, as we all know, as practitioners, burnout's real. It can be, I poured a lot of myself. I found it very hard to disconnect at the end of patient visits. I found, it was just, I would like go home and just want to like eat a pizza and drink 3 glasses of wine. It's like, it's not healthy. So how do I make practice feel more like healthy for me? And that sort of a practice approach being like having the herbs around me, bringing them into the visits, and attracting patients that wanted that too, right? It was like that eventually, it took a while to get there, but it's like eventually people knew that's why they'd come to me. So I wasn't having to sell people on herbs. It was like, okay, no, wait, sure. I want an expert on herbs, and that, I could be that person for them. And I'm really grateful for that.
I think that, autonomy in our practice, we have this, solidarity piece where we're moving together to try to help people be well, but this autonomy in practice is really, really important. I think you'll find that people are watching this, both patients and practitioners alike, who are like, that sounds lovely. That's the way I would like to be treated, or that's the way I'd like to treat people. And hearing that perspective, I think, is really valuable. And for a lot of people who maybe have watched this show or are thinking about what their career might look like, and feeling stuck in this path of advanced medical testing and then IVs, or advanced medical testing and then straight to prescriptions or something. That's not really why they got into this.
Yeah, and you can feel pressured to go that way. And even clinical practice, period. Like I say with students, sometimes it's like, if it's not for you, that's okay too. Like there's other things. I think we have a lot of herbalists too. Like they come, it's like, if you're in the herbal world, which I kind of am in as well, everybody sort of idolizes the clinician. And it's like, clinical practice is so valuable and it's so important, and you have to do it if you're going to be, to some degree, talking about herbs. You've got to be using them and see how they're working. There's research, there's teaching, there's product development, there's advocacy, there's all of these other things that can be done too. So anyway, I think that that's just an important reminder for, if it's not feeling like it's working for you, then to look about that, how else it can work for you. And I definitely have done that throughout my journey. Which I'm really grateful that I've got to have these sort of different chapters. Still some common threads throughout, but yeah, I've had such great experiences through each one. So,
well, that's the whole point of the show, really. With the personalized career aspect, which you've made excellent points, and inspiring points. Really, there's other options. And then we have this personalized care point, where you have this really cool way of personalizing your care that's different than anyone that we have spoken to. I feel like we should go a little deeper into this, type of personalization. What does that visit look like? You're sitting at a kitchen table in your clinical practice with herbs behind your head. Let's go through a little bit about how you might create a formula that is going to help someone. Where do we start? What are the steps?
So Jill Stansbury, in one of her books, has kind of like a triangle model that she uses that I think is a really nice picture to keep in mind. Honestly, my style's kind of changed over the years, but where I am now is I like this triangle, and I like keeping my formulas as simple as I can. So 3 to 5 herbs, sort of max. I do use some formulas that have more than that, but for kind of generic off the shelf stuff, herbs will have my formulas will have 10 to 12 maybe. But if somebody's sitting in front of me and it's the first time I'm giving them a custom herbal formula ever, I'm doing less, because I also find that the simplicity of picking what I think are really the right herbs for that person, and maybe I'm lucky in the sense that I feel like I know the herbs well enough to be able to do that, where I can pick. I kind of try to test myself to be if I could only give this person one herb, what would it be? What's the best fit? Almost in a homeopathy sense, right? It's picking the simple versus compounding. It's can we do all that as much as I want to do with this person with one herb, with 2 herbs, with 3? But with the 3, it's nice because it's there's the kind of the backbone of the formula, the foundational herb, the one that I'd be if I could only give one, it'd be this. And then I have my supporting herbs that go alongside that are supporting either the major action of the primary herb in the formula, or have a directing quality. So ginger or licorice, or some sort of organ specificity to where we're going. So something that gets at things a little more specific. So it's general to the person, and then supporting to the action, and then maybe something slightly more specific are the 3 that make that up. And then I might not be able to choose just 3, so I might want to add in a couple extras that I know will just support the blend as a whole. But and then I usually will start with usually 100 mils, but 250. I think 100 doesn't go very far, as we know. They're get you through, if you're taking that like half teaspoon a day, that's going to get you through like a week. So knowing that you're going to put somebody on adaptogens, but I like, that's probably going to be long term, but I like to always check in at around 2 weeks. Maybe they hate the taste and they're just not taking it. Maybe it did upset their stomach. Maybe, there's just something. I'm not going to give a huge amount to start. And then we refill as needed as we go. And and then dosing, in these cases too, depending on the person, sometimes I'm doing teeny amounts, and some herbs, it's like I have this beautiful local wild rose, fresh rose tincture that I make, and I drop dose that for people. It's like, that's something that you just drop dose throughout the day to get the benefit, which is really just nervine relaxing anxiolytic effects. That's going to be different than andrographis and echinacea when you're sick, where I'm just going to get you to take, maybe a teaspoon every 2 to 4 hours for a few days. So it's, those kind of things go into how much I'll decide to dispense as well.
Right.
But I like to focus on herbal actions. I'm really big on learning herbal actions and then combining herbs with those actions to get synergistic effects. And then organ specificity, tissue, organ, body specificity. So what organ systems in the body need the most nourishment? And then I'm going to pick herbs specific for that. And those are probably going to be the foundation of a formula.
I love it. And then because of the way that you're practicing, the way that you were practicing it, and this kind of method, you should see benefit rather quickly. Like the follow-up is within 2 weeks. That's a pretty quick follow-up. Right?
Yeah.
So, treating anxiety or supporting insomnia reduction and supporting digestive wellness. Are we talking like a few days, for example? Are we talking right at that 2 week mark? What's a typical approach?
No, I think most of the things is like, it's 2 to 3 weeks. And I always say, like, I don't really want to see you until you've been doing it consistently for 2 to 3 weeks. Don't book another appointment if you've only started it like 3 days in, or you started taking it and then stopped. Like, book in when you've been doing it consistently for 2 to 3 weeks. That's for the herbs with that kind of more tonifying effect. And maybe everything's not going to be better, but I want to see some improvement, like some positive improvement. Otherwise, we're gonna change things up. But bitters work in the moment, and there's other herbs like some of our sedatives that can act really, really quickly, or in a panic attack. Something like, definitely you should notice an effect really fast. Carminatives for indigestion, you should notice an effect really fast. So you can get effects really quickly. And some of the antimicrobial herbs, same thing. It's like you got a tickle in your throat, you pound that herb for a couple of days and then you can stop. You don't have to keep taking it. So it just depends what you're treating. Yeah.
Absolutely. Love it. You mentioned something in there which was safety, which I wanted to cover because this has been probably the biggest challenge, other than what to keep in my clinic, has been what herbs are safe with what medications. And my biggest question around this really is the resource. What is the best resource? I shouldn't have waited a decade to message you about this, but what is the best resource for someone like in integrative medicine, naturopathic medicine, and functional medicine to use? Let's say, a good example would be that a lot of physicians are getting into functional medicine and don't have that resource on their table. What is the one or multiple that will help them determine what herbs are safe with which medications?
Yeah, it's such a good question. I'll tell you my process, what I do. So the first book that I go to is the American Herbal Products Association Safety Handbook, AHPA Safety Handbook. And I'm looking at mine. I don't know when it was published. I have it on my shelf. There may have been a new edition since the last one, but they have a lot of herbs in it, hundreds. So that's the other, I find with a lot of the little handbooks, it's like the herb you're looking for is not in there. So
my handbook.
Okay, yeah. So it happens a lot. It's really annoying. So that one is very thorough. And what I like about it is that it's been peer reviewed by so many different people, and it breaks down all of the in vitro versus clinical research in relation to herb safety and herb drug interactions. So that's my issue with 90% of the information you find on herb drug interactions, especially on Google, is just everything will be based on. I don't know what they're basing this safety info on. It could be an in vitro study, and we know that's just garbage. Like a herb in a test tube is not going to act the same way as a herb interacting with our gut flora in our body. It's with those drugs, like it's just not. Even this like inhibition of various liver enzyme pathways. And like, I don't really buy it until I've seen it in a person have an adverse effect. So if there's evidence of that, I'll care about that. It still won't mean I don't use the herb, but it might mean that I inform the patient about this case report. Most of the time, safety profile for herbs is exceptionally good, but there are going to be these weird case reports. So anyway, I go to the HPA book first.
Mm-hmm.
The next place I go is usually Dr. Yarnell's Botmed Rocks website, where he has a spreadsheet that he's continuously updating as well that also looks at in vitro versus clinical or like human studies. And sometimes I won't find anything there, and I'm like, okay, that's a good thing. Like, didn't find it there. If it's not there, that means it's nothing. It's not major, because I trust him as being a resource to someone to keep up on top of that. And then I, of course, go to PubMed and Google Scholar, and I just do a quick little bit, like this drug, this herb. Let's see what comes up. Any case reports, anything like I should be really just mindful of. And then I take all of that and I decide. So yeah, it's unfortunately not quick. Well, it can be, I've gotten pretty quick at it, depending on how many drugs the person is on and whatnot.
I think it sounds quicker than me fighting with myself about liver enzyme pathways.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, it inhibits it. Does it inhibit or enhance? And what is going to happen with the medication?
Yeah. And then if it does inhibit or it does enhance, then what? Then what? Is it going to harm the patient? Is it going to make the drug slightly less effective? Is it going to make the drug more toxic? Those are all important questions, and that's going to help me decide whether I'm going to do it or not. But it's just like, if you type in any herb, any drug into the internet, it will tell you, yes, there's an interaction. And then some clinicians might just stop there. And it's like, wait, there's so many more other questions to answer on top of that.
Well, I love this framework, and I'm going to adopt it immediately. This is excellent. Thank you. No, this is what we need. This is really what we need. Just streamline what works.
No, I'm glad. Yeah. And, there's like this small group of herbs that we used to call the toxic herbs, but now we just call them the low dose herbs. And being aware of what those are, just from a safety standpoint. Well, anything in the Solanaceae family, and we're not using these herbs very often, but they're not easily found at the health food store. We've got your belladonna, your Detropa, your hyoscyamus, and then outside of that family, yellow jasmine. These are herbs that you're drop dosing in tiny amounts. Poke root's a herb you don't want to use very much of. It's super effective, but small amounts. Mm-hmm. Those are kind of like the big ones. Like, there's others, sure, but like outside of those, and then some topical use only herbs, but things that are really high in certain volatile oils or other alkaloids. But yeah, it's a pretty short list.
A good way of approaching this might be just, I have a very general experience in the sense that my practice has been primary care to the majority, for the majority of my career. And I haven't used any of those herbs because of concern, because of worry. And I have, fought with myself and spent hours trying to make sure herbs that are probably very safe are actually safe for the person in front of me. And you probably know which ones I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. And I'd love to hear some of the most common concerns that you see clinicians have with medications and herb drug interactions that can be navigated. For example, if you have any examples, the biggest one, of course, is St. John's wort, and
sure.
for good reason, but
yeah.
I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, I think, so do I give St. John's wort to somebody who's on an SSRI? No, but if I'm working with that person to wean off that medication, or these patients who are just like, stop taking it, they just like, I take it and then I stop taking it and then I'll like, if I do, there's a product that I love that has a little bit of St. John's wort in it. It's a combination of St. John's wort, skullcap, saffron, Sandra. I love that product. I will use it in that patient. It's a tiny bit of St. John's wort. I'm not concerned, but I have, there are some people, and I'm not into like SNPs and all of the kind of that world, but I do know that some people are less able to tolerate St. John's wort than others. And so, yeah, there's concerns there that I am a pretty conservative herbalist, I would say. I do, yeah, I don't want to hurt anybody. I don't want to make anybody feel crummy. It's like, it's top of mind, do no harm. So, even if I'm not going rogue with a lot of these things, but one thing that I would see do see a lot of is people have concerns with hawthorn and like any blood pressure medication. And that's one I'd say I have no concerns for. You name it, how it works on the heart. I don't have a concern there. Licorice is the other one that has like a million.
This is the other one.
And one thing I do want to say that is legit also about St. John's wort is birth control, oral birth control. It can definitely reduce effectiveness of oral birth control, oral contraceptives. So outside of SSRIs and HIV medications. So that's, those are warranted. Yeah, licorice. I would just direct people to go check out Eric Yarnell has a whole monograph on licorice where he goes through all of the evidence around hypertensive effects and potential interactions. It's very, very thorough. And yeah, spoiler alert, he's using it at doses lower than 100 milligrams of glycyrrhizin a day. The risk is very, very, very low of hypertension. And then anything like immunomodulating herbs and autoimmune disease gets brought up a lot. I don't use herbs like astragalus with anyone on like an immunosuppressive, but I also have no issue using immunomodulators in people with autoimmune disease unless they're maybe in like an acute flare. But if it's chronic ongoing, I will use herbs like astragalus, no problem. And even echinacea, I could get into a whole thing about echinacea being like more of an immune modulator than stimulator, and I have no concerns using echinacea and autoimmune disorders either. Lemon balm and hypothyroidism is one I've been learning about lately, which is also doesn't seem not. We're always like super concerned about worsening hypothyroidism, and that seems to be off some like not so that rationale is based off of some research that the rationale doesn't really make too much sense there either. And then there was, I'm trying to think what would be, and then like blood thinners is the other really big one. So like ginkgo and warfarin, and like I do think again that some herbalists like Yarnell have talked about this as being not a concern, but I tend to be slightly more on the conservative side. So if there is a risk of bleed in like an elderly patient, am I giving them huge amounts of ginkgo? No, I'm not. But would I give a small amount in combination with other things like occasionally? Probably be fine with that. So there's a lot of nuance here. I don't have a lot of like.
But honestly though, Marisa, it's a master class for someone who sees a lot of different conditions and wants to use herbs, but has been worried about using them. Like for example, in my case, the main question I had was about using St. John's wort in a taper from an SSRI, and you answered it. I think I know the product you're talking about.
Okay.
Like this is the thing, and I have felt a couple times that like doing a disservice because of not using that.
Yeah.
For fear that there's going to be interaction.
Yeah, and I get it. Like we need to be super conscious of safety. But it is again sort of treating the herbs like drugs, saying that they do this thing like St. John's wort works like an SSRI, and it doesn't. It works on many different neurotransmitters. It happens to, inhibit the reuptake slightly of serotonin too, but it's to send somebody like spiraling into serotonin syndrome because you gave a formula that had a little bit of St. John's wort in it. Yeah. It's pretty unlikely. It's pretty rare.
And the other thing you brought up that I think gives some people some freedom who are just entering into this, maybe from the conventional world, is using astragalus and echinacea in autoimmune disease. So many of us have not done that, and for fear that we're going to send someone into a flare. But I think your point, correct me if I'm wrong, is that potential caution in flare. Is that true, or is it not even that?
I have seen it once. I do always inform the patient that there's a possibility. So I don't want them to be like thrown for a loop if something but it's the benefit, I think. And yeah, echinacea is really fascinating in this way. I think that herbs are like 99% of the time modulating to the body and not just having this direct like shotgun approach that's just going to like all of a sudden your immune system's going to be like boosting, I'm putting in quotes, like an immune booster. Like it's outside of poke root, I don't think really any herbs have that ability to really like shoot white blood cells up the root. Like they're working to modulate their, like I say, 99% of the time.
We shouldn't be reductionistic in thinking about them.
Yeah.
So we have covered so much. We've covered a set of herbs that a person can turn to when they're trying to practice holistically initially to really give good care to people. We talked about a framework for doing so. And we talked about safety considerations for making the protocols safe and effective for people. And I think that those alone has been really valuable, and I really appreciate your time. Where can practitioners find out more about you and your company? Where should we look?
Yeah, so you can check out herbalenergetics.ca to find out more about my company. And like I say, we just sell to practitioners. So yeah, you can sign up there. You can email me and I'm happy to send you more information it's just not a ton of information on the site, but happy to reach out to practitioners with more info. And then, yeah, I've stepped back from the world of social media. I did have like a lot of presence there for a while, but I don't anymore. But I have an old website. Well, and you can go to the naturopathicherbalist.com. That's the website I started when I was in school, and I have had an Instagram and a Facebook page that I have some content up there, herbal content up there you can check out. Those would be the main two places.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time. I think people will really enjoy this episode and get lots out of it.
Well, thanks, David. I love chatting with you.
I'm grateful.
It's great to talk herbs, and it's just really nice to connect.
Yeah, same to you. Keep herbal medicine going. Keep doing what you're doing. Thanks again. Have a great day.
David. Yeah, you too.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us for today's discussion. What about today's podcast resonated with you? Be sure to tag at Dr. David Dizer and at Get Vitamin Lab. If you're learning from and enjoying this podcast, please let us know by subscribing to our YouTube channel and follow the show on Spotify and Apple. And don't forget to leave us a review. It's the best way to support our podcast, and it helps others find us. To learn more or book a demo to explore what personalization could do for your practice, please go to www.getvitaminlab.com/personalized.